life goes on, long after the days of living are gone.
Hey friends, it's your man PJ. Welcome again to Word with Friends. Today, I want to talk about a very important word that I think that a lot of times in studying the Bible we overlook, and that word is vernacular. Vernacular. Here's a good example of vernacular. If I asked you right now, is it or is it not legal for someone who is 16 years old to drink? What's the answer to that question? Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Well, I'll tell you what, the answer is yes it is. But you were thinking, no it's not. Why were you thinking no it's not? Because when I said is it legal for someone to drink, your mind immediately went to alcohol. I want to talk about 4 different passages today, and we're calling this one This Rock. Yeah, I know I don't have a really cool rock face, but I give it my best shot. So today we want to look at Matthew chapter 16, verse 18. Jesus is talking to his 12 best friends, and he's sitting around and he asks them, who are people saying that I am? And Peter says, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Jesus looks back at Peter and says, blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah. And then he says, from now on, you're not going to be Simon anymore. I'm calling you Peter. Peter, which means rock. And then he says, and on this rock, I'm going to build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. Now, here's where the strange things come in to play. Some people think that, or actually a lot of people think, that Jesus was naming Peter the first pope of the church and saying that he was going to build this church on the foundation, if you will, or the rock that is Peter. I think that's ridiculous, okay? And if you read the context and read that in flow, you should come at the same conclusion that what Jesus was actually talking about building his church on, the rock that he was building his church on, was the revelation of the knowledge that Jesus himself is the Son of God. Doesn't that make just a little bit more sense to you? Cool. Pray on that. Next, we're going to talk about Matthew chapter 19, verses 23 and 24. In this passage, Jesus is talking to this rich young guy, and this rich young guy wants to follow him. He sees Jesus with his 12 buddies and the posse that's following behind him, and he says, hey, I want to be like them. So he comes to Jesus and he says, what do I need to do? I want to roll with you guys. And Jesus says to this guy, he says, basically what I need you to do is to keep the commandments. And he says, Jesus, I do that. I got it down pat. I've been doing that since I was a little boy. I got it. What else? So Jesus says, well, okay, why don't you sell all your possessions and give it to the poor and then come on after me and follow me? And the guy says, I don't know about that one, because this guy had a lot of stuff. And the Bible says that he went away sorrowful. And Jesus turns around again to the crowd that's following him and he says, look, he says, it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. What? How does a camel pass through the eye of a needle? Well, I guess you gotta ask yourself the question, what is the eye of a needle? What was Jesus talking about? Well, it turns out that in those days, the eye of a needle was found at the city gate, and at a certain time of the day, that gate didn't swing wide because they would close it, okay? And there was this other section of the gate, okay, where people came through at night, and it was called the eye of a needle, and it was a very narrow space. Now, how a rich man comes into play is, rich people, in those days, of course, everybody was chilling on camels. They were on camelback. So if you're riding on a camel, and your camel is loaded down and bagged up, saddlebags all over the place, you can't fit those saddlebags through the eye of a needle, so you would have to unburden the camel in order to get him through that eye, or that city gate. So it would be easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. You can draw the parallels there on your own. I don't need to explain that one to you. The next one that I want to talk about, we're going to go to Romans chapter 16, verse 20. And in there's a little section where Paul is talking to the church at Rome, and he says something very strange. And it gives the impression that God really does not have any idea what time looks like. What he says is that soon Satan will be crushed under your feet in some translations. In other translations, or the one that I first spotted it in, was the King James Version, where it says, and Satan shall be crushed under your feet shortly. Okay, so that begs the question, what exactly is shortly? We live in a microwave age. Shortly means shortly. You know what I'm saying? So this must be vernacular, because I'm sure that this was written to people, and the people that heard this would have heard this. Are you ready for this? This has nothing to do with time. Oh my gosh. What it actually means is, back in those days, Rome was in Rome. Just like it is today. So when Paul says that Satan will be crushed under your feet shortly, what he was actually talking about, it was a reference to the Roman soldiers and the formations that they used to travel in. And what would happen is the way that they would march was called shortly. They would march shortly. And basically these were short, choppy stomps. And these stomps would shake the earth because there was so many of these guys that, you know, you heard them coming, you saw them coming, they were massive, and they would be coming straight at you. And they never broke formation. So if you were in the way of them marching shortly, you got run over. I don't care if you're an old lady with a walker getting her walk on and all that, you got obliterated because all these feet would just go and blow you up, okay? So that's what that one means. Friends, thanks for joining me today. I gotta run, but I do want to encourage you, study to show yourself approved. Holla!
Holla, holla, holla. Life goes on, long after the days are living on gone. Holla, holla, holla. Life goes on, long after the days are living on gone. La 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 la.